Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect, everyone. I already made a short little reel about this topic, but I wanted to go over all of the messages that Sarah Brady, Jonah Hill's ex, has shared. And I think they both deserve a little bit of blame. And I think Jonah Hill, he might be an unlikable type person, but we're going to get into it here to see what it's all about. So let's rock and roll here. All right. So this is the first thing that she shares. This is a warning to all girls. If your partner is talking to you like this, make an exit plan. Love you all. Call me if you need an ear. Now, here's the thing. The fact that she's sharing all of this now, right as Jonah is having a kid with another person, a little bit like a smear campaign. Now, let's get into what she was saying here, or what Jonah said to her. Respect, however, and we're getting only bits and pieces of this here too. We're not getting the whole puzzle. But he says, respect, however, you want to live your life, you only get one. Sort of done with explaining myself. So this kind of sounds like Jonah was giving her some grief about something and she's not getting it. And it sounds like he was giving her grief about some of the pictures that she had online. 3 removed, not the video yet. It is my best surfing video. Would you feel better if the camera frame was different? Any more specific ones that bother you? Yes, that one isn't of your ass in a thong. One that isn't of your ass in a thong. Not a thong, but okay, she says. So it looks like she's trying to work with him here. And here's the thing. These are Jonah's preferences, I guess. And it could be signs that he might be a little bit controlling for sure. Now, but here's the thing though. Rather than just be a victim about it, if someone acts like this, you leave. And especially with what Jonah Hill is about to say next, it becomes the choice. And this is why I say there usually isn't just one unhealthy person in a relationship, there's usually two. And that is even if the other person just has weak boundaries or is codependent or is a people pleaser. Guess what? All those behaviors are toxic too. And it takes two to tango. And sometimes we got to take a look at what our part in this scenario was. And if our part was that we were a people pleaser and had weak boundaries, that's on us. So it goes on to say, so this is Jonah's quote unquote boundaries for her, plain and simple. If you need surfing with men, boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post sexual pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places and from your wild recent past, beyond getting a lunch or coffee or something respectful. I am not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it, and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership. Now, perhaps he could fill in the blank with preferences instead of boundaries, because I do agree boundaries are for ourselves, but I also believe that we all have preferences and how we want our partners to act. Do we want to be in an open relationship or do we prefer monogamy? How about drug use? How about any other fill in the blank activity? To a point, if we have an agreement to have a relationship with someone, there will be behaviors that other people will do that we won't find acceptable. Now, you might not like that these are the things that Jonah says. And yeah, I think that might be a little bit much. He seems a little, I don't know, what's the word? It seems a little much. We'll put it that way. But he's given her the choice here. And honestly, if you're going to be a little much, this is probably the best way to be a little much, to give that person a choice. And then it's on her. If you don't like all of this, then you leave. And perhaps one of the best interpretations of this whole thing would be Sarah Brady sees her mistakes here, the red flags that she thinks she's overlooked, and she's trying to warn other people. Perhaps. That's the generous interpretation. And so she says, oh, see the misuse of the term boundaries. But again, I think that's more of a somatic thing or semantic thing. If you could replace that with preferences, how would someone communicate their preference towards monogamy? Is it a boundary that they don't like their partners hooking up with other people? Or is it a preference? Again, it doesn't really matter. I think that's just part of the agreement. When you come to terms on a relationship and you try to develop the agreement, are you okay with monogamy or do you want an open relationship? And I don't think it's a misuse of the term boundary to say, hey, I prefer monogamous relationships. Would that be considered controlling their partner? Well, I think there are people who are in E&M that would say it is, but I don't agree with that. But my whole point would be we're always going to be discussing in the beginning what kinds of behaviors are acceptable for each of us. And perhaps Jonah behind closed doors, he does seem like an unlikable person for sure. And perhaps these are all just warnings to not overlook, even though he's not being completely ridiculous with all of this. He's kind of being like a little bit of a jerk in a healthy kind of way, so to speak. It's kind of weird. The messages caused an immediate stir online, and Jonah seemingly called his alleged demands of Sarah his boundaries. They don't like that term. So, this is the other thing that makes me think I didn't read these messages until today. Literally just say hello and leave the combo. I love how your therapist thinks I suck. I literally am the best boyfriend on earth. Now, I'd seen that one, but I hadn't seen this. I've been there for you as a friend, which I have made very clear. Now, this part seems like it was after a breakup. And not only is it not your business, as I only mentioned it to you out of respect and friendship, but I have not been flirting with you or sexting you in any way where it would be inappropriate at this time to start dating someone. And if anything, I felt for your change and tried to be a good and supportive friend as you transition to a scary new environment. And to be crystal clear, I have not flirted or sexted with you in any way, shape, or form in months, and went to say goodbye to you as a super kind gesture that seemed to have appreciated because it was kind. That you seem to have appreciated because it was kind. Now, he's a little patronizing here, a little bit, but again, it seems like he is a little bit of a jerk. He does have a very high opinion of himself, which, guess what? This may be like a quote unquote covert narcissistic kind of tactic where you can kind of act out healthy boundaries, you can act out empathy, but deep down, you can still be grandiose. Now, I'm not accusing Jonah Hill of that, but some of this here does seem of the a little bit of icky variety. One more text then warns, don't ruin all the kindness, you're better than that. So that's a flipping of the script there. And this is another part I didn't see. I'm sorry if it's upsetting that I would move on at all 6 months later, but I have handled you and I with utmost love and respect. Thanks. Don't ruin all the kindness. You're better than that. A flipping of the script there. Blame shifting a little bit. So to say you feel gaslit when I was being nice is absurd. Now, I'm not sure what she's calling being gaslit. When Sarah says that she felt gaslighted by his actions, a reply reads, to say you feel gaslit when I was being nice is absurd. So perhaps that she was upset that Jonah Hill started dating someone else, and she feels like Jonah invalidated her feelings a little bit. Perhaps. But this is going into other areas now too, where if they're broken up, I mean, why are they even still talking at this point? Just as friends? I mean, that doesn't really go over too well. Once you've been romantic, generally speaking, it's going to be tougher to be friends. Now, if you have to do a co-parenting situation, that's different. But usually speaking, you need a break. There's got to be some sort of break if you're going to go back to being friends again. So, you were hurt that I kissed someone and am beginning to date. Fair. You have not been gaslit. So, that could be interpreted as invalidating. You have been treated, in fact, incredibly, both emotionally and financially. So there literally is no winning for me. So that's Jonah playing the victim himself a little bit there, telling her how awesome he's treated her. Now, I always say you got to be really careful with people who say how awesome and great they are, or if they say how awesome they've treated you. It does seem like he's cocky and a little condescending here. So given this whole picture here, yeah, there's a little smoke on Jonah's side of the street for sure. And I would say if a woman client of mine came to me and a guy was talking this way to her, I would say, why do you want to put up with this? If you don't like that, if you don't like his preferences or what he would call boundaries, why stay? That's how I would present it. I've treated you beautifully. Another text is that Jonah allegedly sent Sarah reads, no good deed goes unpunished. More playing the victim there by Jonah. And a trusted ear when you needed one, and eventually I moved on after you moved away, like a gentleman, and was stalked outside of my home. I think he means by the media. And am being framed as inappropriate or gaslighting for it, and I won't stand for it. I'm letting you know I won't participate. I've treated you beautifully. I'm sorry you are hurt. Now that's close to one of my 3 ways a narcissist will apologize. I'm sorry you feel that way. I have been hurt by certain things you have done. Flipping the script. I'm sorry the media is allowed to stalk me. Guilt trip, play the victim. So these last couple things here, I wasn't aware of these. I was only aware of the first one about the surfing pictures. And again, you might think that's controlling. But then again, someone in an open relationship might think monogamy is controlling. So it could be a sign that there's bad behaviors on the other side too. Behind closed doors, Jonah Hill may be a jerk for all I know. But he did give her a choice for that. But the rest of this, there are certainly what I would consider some narcissistic tactics here that, they're not the best. There's certainly behaviors that I would say take note of. And I made a post the other day about ambient abuse, where it's not really clear that abuse is present, but it certainly is. And some of that stuff reminds me of that a little bit, where there could be stuff, but it's hard to pinpoint it because he seems a little bit slippery with it. But he does play the victim. He does flip the script a little bit. And he tells her how awesomely that he's treated her. So he's just not acting with much humility. But Sarah Brady, too, I think she's showing her immaturity as well by just even outing this whole thing in general. Why do this now? Because it sounds a lot like sour grapes when you did this, and now he's having a kid with someone else right now. I find it interesting that you send this all out now. So she's playing the victim a little bit too. I also think Jonah's playing the victim as well. But again, in a healthy scenario, if Sarah Brady was in a good spot, she would just not tolerate that at all. Like, you don't like that? And there's an argument to be made that why would Jonah be trying to go out with a woman that's a professional surfer and that's what she does? Fair point. Definitely a fair point there. So what has to happen here is, if Sarah thinks that he's being controlling or doesn't like his preferences, then it's on her to go. And for everyone, I don't hear this side talked about very much in this case, but as someone who works with people that have been victims of narcissistic abuse or just abuse in general, I should say, I know the self-aware narcissistic community doesn't like it being called narcissistic abuse, but just abusive situation. If you've been in one of them, we got to take a look at our side too. So again, it looks like there might be some warnings there in some of his texts. But for us and the people that I want to help, I would say, where do you think she could have done better? And clearly it's, if he's going to say that about removing pictures or the male friendships and whatever, that's your cue to leave. If you don't like that, then you go. And maybe that's what she was trying to do by sharing all of these. And again, that's a generous interpretation, but it does seem a little bit like a smear campaign. That's what she was doing. So I think there's lessons to be learned on all sides here, because very rarely is it just a very clear-cut villain and a clear-cut innocent person. That's not usually how it works. Usually, there's a little bit of blame to go around. And the fact that Jonah was just talking about how awesome he is and how awesome he's treated her, perhaps invalidated her feelings a little bit, could be a little controlling, and you might not like his preferences. But all that said, If she doesn't like that kind of stuff, she can go. So it's a weird, but I would say Jonah communicated his controlling behavior in a healthy way, if that's possible, and gave her the choice. And that's what all boundaries are for ourselves anyway. We teach other people how to treat us, and we teach them by what we accept and what we don't accept. So another angle to play with it would be, if that's what she does and he doesn't like it, then he's more than welcome to walk away too. Now, maybe he was just giving her a shot to see if that she would change her behavior for him. Perhaps. And I was discussing with a commenter of mine on TikTok today about how if both people are playing by the same rules, because if it's only one person playing by the rules, that could also be seen as more controlling as well. But if you're both going to adhere to the same rules, like with monogamy or with drug use, okay, I could see that too. So like with most things, there's some shades of gray with this whole scenario here. I don't think Jonah is a clear-cut villain, and I don't think Sarah Brady's just a clear-cut victim either. I think there's a mixture where once I read all of Jonah's texts that she shared, yeah, there's some warning signs there that I would tell the women that follow me to watch out for that. Doesn't seem like the best. But if you are the woman and a man's treating you in those ways and you don't like it, don't ignore it. Don't ignore the red flags, because the red flags we ignore will be the reason why the relationship ends later. So if you get a bad feeling in your gut, if you get the sense that your feelings are being invalidated, if you get the sense that someone else is playing the victim a little bit, take note of that. Don't ignore it. Get to the bottom of it. And if you find out it's no good, then you leave. That's how it works. And again, if she would have just left, a lot of it could have been different too. But it also sounds like after they were broken up, it sounds like Sarah, who may or may not have been in a trauma bond. I don't want to say it was for sure, but it's possible. She was a little jealous about Jonah Hill dating someone else. And again, though, if someone's not good for us, it's probably not much of a use to be a friend with that person, and we should probably go no contact with that person. But when you go back and forth like that, then we're asking for trouble too. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I don't think either one of them handled this whole thing very well. I think both of them could have handled it better. And perhaps Jonah is a jerk behind closed doors. That's very possible. But there's certainly things I think Sarah could have done better too. So that's my take on this here. Like most things, it's not going to be black and white, very clear cut. I think there's some good tidbits to learn in all directions. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I will be making a video about female narcissists soon. I've been requested to do that again recently on Instagram, so I'm going to do that. So with that, thank you for watching, everybody. Have a good one.